Well, we want to welcome you out to our collaboration cycle number 2B. So we're following up from what we were working on last month with collecting evidence. So we're going to start with a math task today. We'll share our evidence, our formative five evidence. You guys have been collecting that. We'll take some time to share that with each other. We'll talk about hinge questions, do some things where we can take some actions, and then talk about our closing business. A lot of the stuff that we're going to do today, links and information, anything you'll need in the breakout rooms, will be in the navigation guide. And we can put a copy of that in the, I'll put a copy of that right now in the chat. Okay. Oh, did it go? Yeah. Okay. All right. Angie, go ahead and switch. Anything else, Angie? We good on that?
I think that's good.
Okay. All right, we're going to do some math, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to want a piece of paper and pencil, pen, whatever you like to use, but this may need some writing down. This will be hard to kind of hold in your head. So take a second, go grab any materials or paper, pencil, whatever you need. Okay, so we're looking at how many connectors are in the vase. So right now, make a guess. Not, sorry, not a guess, make an estimate. Look at that vase. Think about how many connectors you think are in the vase and just throw your guess in the chat. Your estimate. Keep saying the wrong word. Throw your estimate in the chat.
That's okay, Stacy. Can you hear us though? Okay, perfect.
Good. Yep, throw your estimates in the chat. Nice. We got 46, 72, 80, 52, 64. All right, anybody else?
89, 70.
Nice. Okay. All
Awesome.
right. We're gonna work on this. Okay. So now as the clues appear, use the information that we have to narrow, whoops,
Sorry.
that's okay. To narrow the possibilities to a smaller set. So you'd be doing this with your students, doing the same thing. Think about, okay, now as you learn each clue, your set of numbers is going to go smaller. And use estimation again to determine if the remaining answers are reasonable. Okay. All right. Go ahead to the next one, Angie. So I want you to write down your first estimate, which you guys already did. After each clue, you'll see if your estimate is still a possibility. And after each clue, if it's no longer a possibility, write down a new estimate. You can just write that down. If you want to throw it in the chat, you're fine, but you could just write it down. Be prepared to explain why you chose your estimate. Okay. All right. So here's our first clue. The answer is a two-digit number that is greater than 50. Let's take a minute to think about that. And think, does my estimate still work? If not, remember you make that new estimate. Okay. All right. Next one. Okay. The answer is one less than a multiple of four. We'll hold on this one for a minute because you guys are going to need a little bit of time to figure this one out. The answer is one less than a multiple of four. Okay. Looks like maybe some people joined later. So again, we're doing an estimate of this, of the connectors in this jar. It's a two-digit number that's greater than 50. The answer is one less than a multiple of four. You guys were going to make a estimate at the beginning. Check the reasonableness of your estimate. If you think it's no longer reasonable, make a new estimate. Okay. All right. I think we're good. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Okay, the answer is a multiple of 3. Answer is a multiple of 3. All right, Angie, maybe the next one. The answer is not a multiple of 9. Not a multiple of 9. Okay, let's go ahead with the last one. So triple 25 and eliminate that number. Okay, so now, next slide, Angie. After seeing all those clues, you've narrowed the possibilities to a small set of numbers. Before you answer, select your final estimate. Write it down. We're going to have you put it in the chat. So select your final estimate and put it in the chat. And in the chat, write down why you chose that number, if you can do a quick summary. Yeah, we'll go back to the clues. Will you go back to the clues, Angie?
Yep.
So we'll leave it here for a minute. And just when you think you have your estimate, go ahead and type in your estimate. And if you have a quick clue to tell us why you thought that.
Are we posting those?
Yeah,
Yeah,
as soon
in
as
the
you have
chat.
it, go ahead and post it in the chat. Yep.
87, 51, 88,
I like it. Fits all the clues.
7.
Nice.
69.
Okay. Sorry if we're cutting you short on this one. We'll go ahead and show you the reveal on that. 87 was the connectors. Um, and I wanted to just ask, did anybody, um, could you see the value? What's the value in doing something like this? Could you see where you would use it in your classroom? And you could just type it in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you could talk to us about it really quickly.
Brave soul tonight.
Oh, we're quiet tonight.
Carol, I think I can see value in it, just kind of number sense.
Yeah,
Thinking about um how you relate those numbers and those clues that you gave.
yeah.
So
And getting that number sense, which is huge. And I think that's great. And then having them have to reconstruct that number sense, they're kind of have to rethink each time.
yeah.
How would they look at it differently? I like that.
And I think for my kids it would be a good reminder of those divisibility rules.
Yeah, that's right. Jen just put that in there as well. That divisibility rules, those helped quite a bit with with a few of those. That was awesome. All right.
Cool.
Okay, thank you guys. Angie, you're gonna take over from here.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, kind of to build on a little bit more of what Carol just said, what does the research say about math problems like that? So, students who are more confident in math knowledge have greater math scores. Students who enjoy solving complex problems have higher math scores. Students who have teachers that place a strong emphasis on using alternate strategies have higher math scores. And students with a strong emphasis on making approximations have higher math scores. So all of those parts are really to just highlight. The research shows students who have good emphasis on making approximations, doing those estimations. I know a lot of you guys use estimate 99, or isn't it 99 estimation or 10?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I use a lot of those for your success starters, things like that, just to start building those approximations and then really building on the multiple modes of strategies to be able to solve. So we just wanted to show you that the research does say that this is an important skill for students who have higher math skills.
And I have a link that I will put on the navigation guide so you can get a link to these SD mysteries is what he calls them. Steve Wyverney's blog.
Perfect. Thanks,
Yeah.
Carol.
Mhm.
All right. So we have tonight kind of again just our working agreements that we walk through every night. I was in a school this week and there was a lot of people who brought up like, oh, I had never thought at how important it would be to have working agreements, but it does. And especially as you guys continue to work in small groups, it's important to remember these working agreements. So just take a minute and read through those on your own. And again, these are awesome to put in your PLC meetings if you are a teacher leader in your building. Just being able to have some shared collaborative space where you guys all are saying, I agree to doing these tonight. All right, so we are in our part 2. We're actually ending our part 2 of the winter collaboration cycle, which we have been focusing on how will students know the content and how will you know that students know the content. So that is kind of where we are leaning more and wrapping this part of the cycle up. Our next 2 meetings will be in the spring, and that is just essentially how are we responding to students. So if you guys think of those PLC questions like, what do students need to know? How will I know if my students get there? You know, how am I going to respond? Like, what will that evidence look like? We are essentially just following the PLC process through the lens of formative assessment. All right, so in just a second, I'm going to have you guys jump into some breakout rooms, and hopefully everybody brought or at least has something to share about how you collected student evidence of student learning. So last month we talked a lot about pick one of the formative 5. Is it going to be interviews? What, you know, whatever section in the formative 5 process you guys wanted to focus on, and then how did you collect that? And I really want your conversations to really kind of focus on this second question. How did this evidence inform your instruction? So it's fine if you collect the evidence, but if we're not doing anything with it, then we don't want to waste our time collecting evidence. So in your teams, talk about what did you do with this evidence and what worked well collecting it, what was maybe challenging collecting it, and what can you improve or modify so you can continue this documentation process, which again is just evidence of student learning over time. So I am going to open the breakout rooms. I'm actually going to assign you guys a breakout room because we kind of have a small group tonight. So the breakout rooms will be just a little bit smaller. So when you guys see, I'm just going to have you guys be assigned manually. You can just open that up. Is there any questions about what you guys are doing in your breakout rooms before I open them up? No? Okay. These questions are also on the navigation guide, so feel free to use that also to guide your conversations. Carol and I will pop around, and we are excited to kind of hear, like, what kind of evidence did you guys collect and what did you do with it?
They can't add the mixed numbers, but it's more they don't understand number lines still. Like they don't understand um different things there. And so I realized that if I can pull them into a small group and teach them how to put fractions on a number line, and that will be beneficial for them, and using manipulatives will be beneficial for them rather than trying to teach them like a paper and pencil strategy. Hi, Carol. For
Hey.
doing for doing the fractions. So but it was just cool to see the kids that can do, even though they are figuring out how to add and subtract fractions without mixed numbers, just having them find like, oh, but it's closer to the 5. It's going to be closer to 5 than 6 because it's 5 and 1/5. And so just having them picture that. So that was cool. The interviews worked really well today for me to be able to like meet with them one-on-one and see that. And so I've really enjoyed the interviews, but I'm still struggling to like take notes that are meaningful and not just like sticky notes, because that's kind of what I'm doing right now is sticky notes, and I feel like I want to be able to like type and take notes, but I also want to be engaged with them, so I'm still kind of struggling with that. So if you guys have any suggestions, that would be great.
Yeah. I don't know, recording sometimes I like recording, but then you have to go back and watch or
Like listen to it.
well,
Hmm.
but maybe you go, I don't have to go back. I got the gist of this one, but this
Right.
one kid I might need to know.
More.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought about doing is, so I have a Surface Pro, but
Hmm.
I need to figure out a way. I want to figure out a way where I can just like write it on the Surface Pro and then have it converted into text. And I'm sure there's a way to do that. I just need to sit down and figure it out, and I
I
just
think
haven't had
there
time yet.
is I think there is too. I know Stephanie Iverson, who's on
Okay.
today. She has done a lot on her iPad, and so we can connect with her and
Okay.
ask her too, because she might have some good ideas. And I
Okay.
think there is a way. I'm pretty sure there
I'm
is.
sure there is. I just never have time to figure it out when I need to, and then when
I
I
know
have time, I forget. So,
I know there is in a program. I got to think of what the program is, but
mm.
I know there is because I've done it before, but I haven't done it recently. Good.
Does anyone else want to share?
So I have some exit tickets that I've been using at the end of my lessons as kind of a formative assessment. And uh, I like them, but I don't love them. Um, it's just a couple of questions usually to kind of wrap up everything that we've taught in the lesson just to see where they're at. And I've been doing them all year, but I haven't really given like grades for them. But we're using OUR. I don't know if anybody's
Yeah.
familiar with that, but
Yep.
um, it's the most challenging thing I'm finding is like, what do you put in for grades? Um, and it not just myself, we're all kind of struggling here at my school with that. And so one of the teachers suggested that she uses the exit ticket as a grade, but there's literally two questions on it. So if they miss one, they fail. And so I'm just, yeah, not sure how.
I think the other hard thing about that is because I am familiar with open up resources and those are good, they're good questions, but it's right after they're learning. Like it might not be a great time for those questions. You know, if you're giving them right after the lesson, it is a great time, but it's also, like you said, it's hard to give that a grade, I think,
Yeah.
because you're right. If they fell, um,
Well,
unless
and
they're
sometimes I
going,
feel like it like, and it's not right. So my math is actually interrupted by recess. And
mm-hmm,
so we do it like we go through the regular lesson and then they go to recess, and when they come back, um then I have them kind of like maybe finish up anything they needed to do and do the exit ticket then.
mm-hmm,
And then they work on their like practice problems that come with the lesson. And I can do a grade on those as well. I do that sometimes too, but I don't know. I'm just not
are
loving
you
it. I do
are
I
you
do like the exit ticket. I feel like the exit tickets do show me like authentic
what they
where they're
know?
at with their understanding. So I like that part of it. It's just not working for me as the grading thing. And it feels like it's extra pressure,
Do you
which
do
I
them?
don't like.
Are they do you do those online or are you having them put them on paper or what do you
So
do?
they put I don't know, can you see me? I can't see myself.
Yeah, I can't see either, but
I don't know what happened to my video. Did it work now? Okay. Well, anyway, they're just little note cards.
yeah.
Um, except right now we're doing some stuff with areas. So instead of note cards, I just cut like graph paper into
Hmm.
note card size. And so they're just like these little cards, and I put the problems up on the board, and they put down their information on their little note card and turn in their little note card. So I wanted it to feel like not as much pressure.
Yeah.
And I told them it's just like, I want to know where you're at.
Hmm.
So, and then sometimes if I have time, like they'll come and bring them directly to me and I'll quickly look over it and say, like, circle something and say, go look at this one more time. Because they're like close, I can see, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also other kids that, you know, have been struggling. And so I'm trying to work with them. I'm just trying to do too much at once, I feel like. And so I can't, I don't know.
Well,
I don't
so
know what to do different.
So I'm just throwing this out maybe to the group too. If we're talking about formative assessment, because you are alluding to that, like you want them to feel kind of comfortable, safe in their thinking it. And if it's kind of a graded thing, it's a little tricky, right? So
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
everybody else? What are your ideas on anybody else have any thoughts on how to keep that in that safe zone, but I don't know if do you use it for a grade? Do you not? What do you guys think?
I think on the exit tickets that they tell you if the kids are understanding it or not. And I
Mhm.
would use it as a grade. I would more use the exit tickets as something to tell me, okay, these kids get it, and these kids need more, maybe small group or one-on-one instruction with me. And then from there, like if I know the kids that get it, I could put that in for a grade.
Yeah, for
And
them,
then
for
once we work
them.
a little bit more, and then maybe we do another exit ticket and see if they're getting it. That's kind of
So
what I would do.
yeah, so kind of using it to drive your instruction, but also like not a one and done thing where people are penalized for not knowing, right?
Yeah.
Possibly. Okay. Marcy, were you going to say something?
No, just that's what I think Melanie and Tiffany and I have talked about about those exit tickets. And I think Tiffany's right on there because
I
it's
like it.
good to use them to say, oh yeah, they absolutely have this. So then you know that, but they shouldn't be penalized
Yeah.
if they don't.
Yeah, I like that.
I think too, it's important to take like, I mean, just like your observations throughout the lesson as well, that you can use those and drop. I think for me, I use that as evidence all the time when I'm seeing like this student can do it and can help another student.
Mhm.
Yes.
So I can see that like, yes, that's enough evidence for me that they can
Yeah.
do that thing. But
Well, and sometimes I use like I've used it a couple of times to this exit ticket to kind of say, okay, you two go work together because I could see that this student had it and this student was struggling. So kind of make small groups that way and to pull some in to work with me. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea that we're getting away from the one and done thing. Like, okay,
Mhm.
it's exit ticket, it's done, that's a grade, and we're done. And it's more building a picture of what the students know. And so, like Tiffany said, yeah, some of these, and Rachel said this as well, and Marcy, some of these, yep, we know these guys know it. I could put a grade in for that. We know they know it. The other ones we're gonna hold on for a minute, and then when they get there, we can put that in. But just that shift from the one and done grade, traditional kind of not,
Yeah.
not a chance to redeem themselves, but kind of
Yeah.
a
And I don't like to do it just participation because then I
yeah,
don't, then it's not, I don't know.
it's not
I,
quality work, maybe.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not that their grade needs to reflect their understanding necessarily for me, but you know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? I don't know. Anyway,
Well,
somebody else can go. I'm kind of dominating, sorry.
oh, you're great. You're great. Anybody else want to chime in? Tiffany, did you share what you were doing?
No, I didn't yet.
Okay.
So we're working on measurement in second grade. So a lot of it, I work with them in small groups, and I pull them. We kind of interview, but just in a small group style, just because that's just the way it just has to be.
Hmm.
And this week, I was just trying to see if they knew we're finalizing up our unit, and we're trying to see. We're working with centimeters and meters and inches and feet, and just talking about having them measure things around the classroom and when I pull them back, usually we measure something and I want to see if they can do it correctly and use the right measurement. So if they bring their ruler back, are they using the right side of the ruler to measure? If it's
Mhm.
centimeters, I found that some kids were like they had it on the wrong side. So we talked about how do you know it's centimeters? How do you know it's inches?
Yeah.
And so then I redirect them and say, okay, well, let's look at your line, measure it again. Is it in centimeters or is it in inches? What do you have? So just, I think measurement can be a tricky thing, especially when they have multiple options
Mhm.
on with their rulers. So we're just working on that this week, trying to making sure that we know how to draw our line. Like if we're measuring, that's kind of tricky with second graders, just holding the ruler and drawing our line and measuring it correctly, measuring objects, making sure we're on the zero mark on our rulers. And all the rulers are not the same. So some have the mark at the end, some have it a little bit in. So
Yeah.
just kind of teaching them how to use their rulers and have it the right way when they're actually measuring and talking about why we would need measurements. And we've used all sorts of tools. We've used the meter sticks, yardsticks, rulers, tape measures.
I was there when you were doing strings.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And I will say one thing that I really noticed in Tiffany's classroom is there seems to be formative assessment going on continuously.
Nice.
She was very aware through pulling those kids back into those small groups and doing that interview kind of style. She was very aware of which kids are able to do this and which need more practice. So it was very evident that she's working on that formative assessment. Go
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
I know. And my kids who really get it, I send them to another group to work with another, one of our paras, and
Mhm.
goes above and beyond. So they're going to do more extensive things. They're going to not just measure little things. They might take it a step further and go up to the next grade level on what they're working on. So
That's awesome.
have that. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, and Tiffany, we can tell you, I know Marcy can tell you, Rachel can tell you, I think Melanie's sixth grade, I think she can tell you, we run into kids all the time that struggle with with just measuring things. They say, oh, we're supposed to start at the zero, just the things that you were just talking about. So that's awesome.
I had a sixth grader today that she told me she couldn't do the problem because she didn't know which side was inches and which side was centimeters.
Yeah.
That was really scary for me.
Lot of reteaching sometimes. So that's great work that you're doing. Love it. Awesome, you guys. Um, what were some of the other, did we answer all the questions? What were all the questions on there?
I
What was
couldn't find like the list of the questions
I'm
on here, but
yeah, I can, you know what?
I just see like what worked well, what was challenging, what can you improve or modify.
I can tell you the list. I got it. I
Right
got,
for a clock.
got access here. Um, let's see. Let me see if I can find it.
It's on the
Okay,
third point
there
at
we
the
go. So yeah, the evidence, how did it form your instruction? So we kind of talked about that a little bit. How did the evidence form your instruction? Tiffany, you shared. I think you guys all shared about that. What worked well? What was challenging? What can you improve or modify to continue documentation? Any ideas? We're going to leave here in 44 seconds, but I think we kind of talked about a lot of that stuff. Is there anything you guys would change or do differently moving forward?
I like the idea of trying to interview multiple kids at a time, so I might try and do that.
Hmm.
Hi,
Cool.
Rachel, by the way, and
Mhm.
Melanie and Tiffany.
Yeah.
Just actually see Rachel's face. So.
Yeah.
And
Rachel,
Tiffany's
let me
picture.
know
It's a
when
nice
you're
picture
doing
too.
interviews. I would love to come in and see and kind of.
I just do them like every day, but around 12:30 usually, because that's when we have math. It's called
Okay.
math win groups. So
Okay. Okay. I'll plan on it. I'll come in.
yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Maybe one or two people kind of share out of something that worked really well for them that we can share out for the whole team. Or Or it could be, it doesn't even have to be someone else. Someone else could just share something that they heard that they think works really well. Jennifer, I want you, do you want to share?
Okay. So I just did 3x5 cards. Oh, is that me?
It might be me.
Okay.
Not me.
So yeah, just 3x5 cards. So my cohort, Steph and I have been working on one-step equations, just trying to figure out who's still struggling with what we do on one side, we do on the other. And so I was able to just quickly just check off really quick who needed some help. And so today, so we did this yesterday. So today I just took like 10 minutes to like talk to these students that needed that extra help with what we do to this side, we do to the other side. So it was just kind of quick and fast. So I guess that's the same thing. And then I did this with a different class on, this one was last week. So I did this last week on just the roster as I went around. The kids were at the board. So this was when the kids were at the board and I walked around and checked. And then this was just a quick little exit ticket yesterday. So that's it.
And having them at the boards is so nice. It's just easy to see really quickly what they're doing.
Right.
Love that.
Does anyone else want to share out something that worked really well for them? No? Did anyone hear anything that they were like, oh, I want to try that?
Okay, I'll be brave and go.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that mine's similar to Jennifer. I just have like a clipboard and I have my class roster. And so since I do teach junior high, I have about 130 kids. So there's no way to get them all obviously in one class period. So I just like to keep track of who I've got one time. And then the next time they're at the vertical whiteboards, I try to hit different kids. So it's important for me to mark who I've got because you tend to go to the same kids. The same kids want your help. So you've got to make sure that you're hitting all the kids.
I like that.
That makes
Awesome.
sense.
Thank
That
you
clip-
so much for sharing that because
Yeah,
that's
that
a
really
good
helped.
example for our non-elementary teachers who do have like 100+ kids. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to, to account for all of those kids to make sure, I guess they're not kids, teenagers, to make sure that they are all understanding.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many of them. There's so many.
Yeah, that's a lot.
All right. So we are going to kind of jump in so that you guys have time to play around tonight with designing your own hinge questions. So if you think back to the beginning of the year when we were going through all the different types of the formative 5 assessments or types of assessment, planning a hinge question and using a hinge question in your classroom is one of those. And this hinge question is kind of like that stop. That's why I put that picture up here is for everyone to kind of think, oh, I need to figure out who is with me and who is not with me. So I wrote stop and drop because I was thinking of the song like stop, drop, and roll, or maybe that's for escaping a fire. But either way, how are your students doing? What are the next steps? So if my students understand this question, then I can move on. Or my students do not understand this question. I need to pause. Do I need to add in some more manipulatives? Do I need to give them a different question or task to play with? So this is kind of your hinge, right? You think of a hinge on a doorway. Can I move on or do I need more time on the topic? And then another really important component of this hinge question is, do I just need to interview some students? Like, where's my question at? Do I maybe just need to sit down with some kids and kind of pry into their learning a little bit more? It could be, also, one of the groups was saying that this could also be part of adding it to your portfolio of how your students are progressing through this standard. So when you're thinking about a hinge question, this really kind of defines like, does my class understand what we're doing? And it's really important for you as the instructor of planning your next steps. So there could be this kind of came right from our Principles to Action book, but it really just discussed the types of questions that you guys could be asking. So, do I need to just gather information? Is this like a simple hinge question where maybe I'm just looking for a procedure or, just like a quick thing? Do I need something a little bit more elaborate where they're clarifying their questions? Or am I having them use some kind of structure or connection or relationship? So, what kind of manipulatives might they be using? Or is this like a deeper argument or reflection, or maybe it's like a journal entry or a longer, I don't know, half sheet of paper or something. So, these are just different question types that you can kind of be thinking about for your hinge question. All right, so this is a video from the authors who developed the formative 5, and this is about planning a hinge question. Will someone let me know if the audio does not work?
The hinge question was discussed initially by Dylan William in his work. And so we discuss a hinge question, meaning that if a classroom teacher has a content-driven lesson that might have several parts, say, here's a lesson where I'm going to finish up some stuff on fractions and then move to work with decimals or what have you, she might ask a hinge point question to sort of see, okay, how to go with regard to the fraction stuff before I launch into the work with decimals. And so hinge point or hinge, I often refer to as the lesson deal breaker. It gives you pretty quick response as to how the kids have done, ask the question, get responses, sort of assess where the kids are, and then move on. It's not a 15-minute discussion. It's rather quick in terms of getting information and then deciding what my next step is. We also know that when teachers think about and connect this work to their planning, they sometimes use a multiple choice driven hinge and regularly stated question. If you use the multiple choice, you have the information much more quickly because you can use show of hands, every pupil response forms, whatever, to monitor those responses pretty quickly. You spend more time on the planning end. If you use a regular question, you probably spend less time on the actual question, and you're going to spend more time in terms of trying to see what the kids are doing with that.
Typically, where we might use a hinge question at the end of the day to kind of see where our students are, to assess, what sort of understanding they had of the concepts that we covered that day. Our students had the weekend, and then yesterday they had field day. We chose to use it at the beginning of our class today just to kind of see where they were before we even dove in to the next activities.
So what type of hinge question do you want to do? Do you want to do multiple choice, or do you want to do a short answer where they have to kind of explain their thinking? What are you thinking for this?
Maybe since we have a shortened time period today, maybe we just do a multiple choice. And then if they finish that multiple choice kind of really quick, then we can add a tell me how you know kind of ending to it.
Okay. So for this hinge question, what do we want to make sure that they know for sure before we move on? And then if they don't get it, they do get it, where are we going to go?
Well, I think with multiplying by fractions by a whole number, I think they really need to have that solid understanding of adding and subtracting fractions, because we don't want them, creating a new denominator. If they have eighths, we don't want them to put it into sixteenths or 24ths. We need to make sure that they understand that when we're adding fractions or repeated addition, that they need to keep that denominator the same size piece.
Okay. So not only do we have to come up with a hinge question, but then we're going to have to come up with kind of 2 different ideas for our lesson too.
Mm-hmm.
So once we do the hinge question, you want it to focus around addition then?
I think so. I think addition or subtraction. Do you think addition?
Probably addition, since it's multiplication. That would make most sense.
Thinking.
So if they don't get the question that we come up with, your lesson will just focus around reviewing that concept of addition.
And maybe during that time, if I have a small group of kids that really don't understand, and I notice that during the hinge question, I can maybe pull that small group while the others are doing kind of like the review activity we were just talking about.
Perfect, yeah. And you can do your interviews and stuff. Okay, and then if they do get it, then we'll move on to the multiplication.
Perfect.
Okay, so what question are you thinking? Straightforward addition.
I think maybe let's make it something that they can, the next lesson that we get into after the hinge question can be something that they can prove, like they can discover it with a partner. So maybe we make it something like that they can prove with pattern blocks or a number line after, so that they can build on it.
But
I'm thinking maybe we say something like they're sharing cake and they have 1/8, 3/8, 4/8, something along those lines, and then give them options as to what the answer could be.
okay, so let's write the question first. Here, I'll let you write it. And then we can figure out possible answers. We can anticipate some of their mistakes and all that good stuff. All right, so we need to think of 4 choices that'll let us know, do they get it, or they're not making certain mistakes that we know they might make.
Right. So the one that I'm really concerned about is if they just continue to add the denominator. So maybe we put something with a 24th in there. For example, 7/24.
Good.
Okay, so we'll put that as choice A.
Okay. They might continuously subtract, just take away from the 8.
Okay, so then 1/8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do 1/8.
And then we could put the correct answer,
Yeah.
which would obviously be 7/8. The last one,
It's 3 people, so maybe
3/8. And if they just take the first 2 fractions and they forget the last one,
Right.
that would be 3/8 too.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. So I think this will give us a pretty good concept of if they remember how to add or not super quick. And again, they can elaborate on it, just 1 sentence or 2, and that should give us the information that we need in a short amount of time.
Perfect.
I think the hinge question is really important when teachers are considering their next steps in planning. However, the hardest part about the hinge question is coming up with an appropriate one. And then today, when we chose our multiple choice one, because we wanted it for time purposes, it was hard to think what should our choices be so that we really can understand, are they getting it or are they just guessing lucky? So we had to anticipate what some of the mistakes might be to see kind of what those answers should be that we put on there. That tells you where you should go. Do my kids get it? Do they get it? What type of lesson should I do for tomorrow? Should it be a review one? Should it be an extension or should I completely move on? Really important.
All right. So I want you to take a minute and think about one big takeaway that you had from the video. And if you guys could write it in the chat. What's something that maybe stood out to you? Maybe you want to try, maybe you didn't think about with hinge questions. You guys are writing so many awesome things. So I love that people have been overthinking hinge questions and now you can kind of simplify it. Yeah, the types of questions you ask can be simple, but it's really the planning and the intention that are the crucial steps to it. Even I really loved from the video how they were saying like, oh, if they subtracted, it would be 1/8, but if they were only talking about 3 students, it would be 3/8, right? So all those really like the intentionality of the answers that you're giving on a multiple choice can kind of lead you into different types of thinking. Yeah, end of the lesson. No, Melanie, I don't think you're on the wrong. Does anyone else want to talk to that question too? I don't think you're thinking about that wrong. I think the hinge point, it could be a variety of ways, right? They used it at the beginning of the lesson because they had just had field day and they wanted to figure out if they could move on. I think the end of the day to kind of plan for for tomorrow is a great thing. If your lesson does have a couple components, kind of maybe those pulse points in between are another way to think about it. Carol, did I miss comments you wanted to touch on?
I just said I think Raina said it. It's kind of that quick multiple choice makes it so, I mean, it's a little more work on the front end, but you can see stuff really quickly and kind of have a quick diagnose. I hate to say diagnosis, but a quick tell of where the kids are at. I like that too.
Stacy, I loved how yours kind of mentioned that you realized that your kids didn't do something, right? And then you had to move back, right? You had to take a pause point and revisit an idea that kind of came up.
Mm-hmm.
That's another great way that, again, it kind of helps drive that instruction. Um, so I just want to recapture the hinge question is truly an important element of the day's lesson, and it's a key element to the planning and the teaching. And I'm sure that everybody naturally does this in your classroom, but we are just highlighting the importance of where is your class, right? And this can be super quick. It's something that you guys are gathering information along the way. And if we go back to actually, I do need to go back. If we go back to like our learning process, this is the second piece, right? Do my students know the content? And then how do I know? So in the video, they chose pick an answer and then explain, right? So be thinking about like, if I just do a multiple choice, do I need to dive in deeper? Do I not need to dive in deeper? But how are students going to know, or how am I going to know that students know the content? So you guys get to spend the next, I'm thinking maybe 15-ish, 20 minutes in some breakout rooms. And you guys, I can collaborate with each other. You guys can decide if you want to work in your same grade bands. We had put those up for you guys to kind of dive in and just talk about what hinge questions could look like for you in your classroom. And you guys all have school at least tomorrow. So maybe you want to plan a hinge question for tomorrow, or you could be thinking about a hinge question for next week. So I am going to open up all the breakout rooms, and at the bottom of your navigation guide are kind of all of those grade level bands. If you guys need help getting assigned to one of the breakout rooms, don't hesitate to ask and I can move you there. But I'm going to say it's what, 4:55. So let's plan on like 5:10. We'll come back as a group and kind of go through our closing sessions. So is there any questions before I open up all the breakout rooms? No? Okay. So the room should be open, and I'm sure a bunch of the math specialists, I see Marcy's on, and April will kind of be popping around. So feel free to ask us questions, and you guys can practice writing some hinge questions with each other.
I think what I can.
Okay. So
What do
that'd be some good ones. Like
Yeah.
in second grade, I remember us measuring with all different kinds of objects and things from
Oh,
that
yeah.
the kids would come up with. So yeah, so there's some good stuff there. What are you working on, Angie, in third?
We just finished our intro to fractions. And so then we're going to be going into fraction equivalence and comparison.
Oh, nice. Okay. So lots of good stuff to make some questions
they've
with.
already had some really good questions come up already within our own lessons. So I think I could do this. But I don't want to do anything tomorrow because I did promise them that we would have time to celebrate Valentine's Day. But we did our unit assessment, performance task, and then our benchmark today. So that was
Are you one of those lucky ones that has a 4-day week?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you don't.
We're like a 5-4. So 5 one week and 4 another week.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
but
that's
just
still
like
better.
Valentine's, they're getting really excited, and we teach math in the afternoon. So, but we will have math related questions when it comes to cupcakes and treats. And
maybe you could ask them a hinge question, Angie, about if they want a half of a cookie or if they want a third of a cookie or
Well,
Yeah.
so my
And where it's
lead-in,
equivalent, should the girls get a whole one and the boys get a fourth of one?
Yeah, they could do a half, or what could we do? We could do a half as compared to like I'm trying to think of a number smaller than a half but bigger numbers.
Yeah.
Like, or do you want 1/6 of a cookie?
Yeah. Would it be fair for them to get 2/4, the boys to get 2/4, and the girls only to get a half?
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
I don't know
Let's see what they say.
I love it.
So
that'd be cute.
in our one lesson, they were talking about we were talking about like fractions and how big things are, pizzas or cakes. So I'm prepared. I have a big Hershey bar,
Ooh,
and an extra large, and then just regular size.
Nice.
So I'm getting prepared.
Nice.
Nice. That'll really help you with equivalency. That's awesome. I
Mhm.
know another thing I like to use too, and I still do it. Like, this is how silly I am, but in my flex classes that are my interventions, I use Legos and have them for fractions. And so that's really a helpful one. And so that would be a fun thing to do too. But who doesn't love chocolate, especially at Valentine's? Oh my word, they're gonna love it.
Yeah.
Well, we're moving into graphing, and we do have a 4-day week.
Oh,
And
wow.
Oh,
always a
so
4-day week.
jelly.
Good but bad, because I feel like I have so much to teach, and I feel like I just don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But we're not doing fractions. We're doing we're going to finish up measurement and move into graphing. So tomorrow we're going to take our measurement test, and I am actually going to do some graphing with candy hearts tomorrow. So I want to maybe come up with a question for that, because we're going to use the hearts to count, colors, how many pinks, how many greens. They'll each get a box. We'll estimate. But I want to come up with maybe with a question that goes with that before I even break that out, because I think that'll be fun.
What are your goals with
Yeah.
your graphing?
We are going to be working with the hearts on we're going to do tallies.
Okay.
And change tallies to numbers, and then take the numbers and make them into a bar graph. So
nice.
Use those 3 things.
Okay, I'm trying to think.
And I have a worksheet that goes with it, but I'm just thinking, like, what? I don't know.
So, hinge questions. If you started a class with a hinge question, Carol, since you're the expert in here, Missy, would that be to see what they know so that you have a where to go from there, or what you need to kind of pre-teach type of thing? So maybe something along the lines of recognizing, and I don't know, because not knowing your kiddos where you're at, but if they recognize what tally marks are, or what, you know what I mean? Yeah, where they're at with those types of things to
I think
start.
it'd be great to use that, as a pre-teach to kind of know where they're at. Yeah, that's a great idea, Steph.
Maybe like some vocabulary, because that's what's on my mind right now, is because vocabulary is so big, is the questioning around the vocabulary words, making sure they understand the terminology, could speak the math.
Even to see if they know parts of the graph. It's not as essential in 2nd grade, but even what do they know?
Yeah.
Do they know what a bar graph is? Do they know what a tally mark is? Do they know
Yeah.
what part of the graph, like how to graph?
Yeah. I wonder if
what's a graph?
I wonder if you could do a question, like a hinge question that had tally marks, and you ask them to graph the tally marks just right there to see what they know. I don't know.
Or leave it open-ended. How can I represent my data?
Yeah.
And like, if you have 3 red hearts, 2 white hearts, and 4 yellow hearts, how could I represent that?
That's a good one. I like that. How would
they would come up with?
And maybe ask for like how many different ways. Like, I love the open-ended part. How many different ways and you could really get, you might have kids show you a lot of different things, but yeah.
Would 2nd grade, thinking back, I don't know, maybe not, but would they have seen graphs in their life?
Oh yeah, we've seen graphs. They've seen, like, in 1st grade, they've done graphs, and we do a lot of things on the computers, and they see graphs. They see graphs all the time.
So maybe that's where you're like, okay, where have you seen a graph? Like, have them start talking about it to get them into it, and to get them collaborating with each other and sharing, their different wares and what it looked like. And then that would lead into what are the parts that they recognized on those graphs that they saw. And then go into, like, here's the tally marks. Can you graph this? And then, what I mean? You could just kind of have them build.
Right.
Go, heck, we're creating a lesson for you. Scrap the worksheet. We got this.
You're going to have some fun.
Graph.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cool.
Do you do, like, how would you have them display those? Do you have places that put them up, or would you have them on the desk they could walk around and see the different?
I probably have them on the desk, and they can walk around and see all the different graphs. They could circle around the room.
Yeah, and you could.
It's like a gallery walk.
Yeah, it would be really cool to put them in groups and just kind of say, come up with a, how you would graph these. You might see some really cool things.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be tomorrow. I like it. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, my second and third grade friends, come up with mine. I'm going to be starting next week on Tuesday. We're wrapping up inequalities. So we are going into independent and dependent variables.
Okay.
I know. Wowza.
Yeah. Holy moly.
I want a really cool way to get them. Well, listen to me, really cool way, right?
Interesting way.
Anyway, I
Something that
want
keeps
it.
their attention.
Yeah, I am a very I like I want to an open oh, what do you want to call it? Like to introduce it, but I want them to kind of try to come up with what it is, like, you know,
Kind of
that
an
way.
exploratory type.
Yes,
where they're
exactly.
looking at patterns or
Yeah. What would be a good idea to do that? And then after they do that, then I drop a hinge question or wait and do my hinge question at the end of the lesson, I guess, for me, maybe. But anyway, that's what I'm looking for is some ideas. I want to, oh, well, and then because I need to get my observation done. My principal's hounding me. He's wanting to come in next week, so I really want something to do for that too. So I'm looking for something because that's what I'm working on.
yeah.
Quickly, anytime I like plants myself. Can I keep a plant alive? Cross my fingers and hope. But like talk about like different like science experiments like that.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah, I do like to connect it to science because my science teachers I can work closely with and they help me out there to make sure they get that.
I'm thinking even I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a same experiment, but you could add like different things. But the only one that I'm coming up is like dissolving, which really doesn't affect that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
have all mine like that I teach them. You know what I mean? With my slides and cute little videos and we discuss and we stop and watch. You know, I do all that and I have all that. But this year I've really been trying to go more they get it started. And then I use that when they're stuck at home or they're struggling, then they go to my stuff. You know what I mean? As supports and resources to refer to. So this year, but I haven't gotten that far to find. I'm honestly like a day ahead of them now because I switched over to trying different stuff this year. But anyway, so I am ready until Tuesday. I don't know. And that's where I want to start with. So I'm looking for stuff to help me get that engagement. So maybe I just start with a question, like my bell ringer is a question on the board that is going to be developing, because we do know about variables. I don't know. Maybe a hinge question about what independent and dependent means to see if they understand the vocabulary there.
Yeah.
Because as sixth graders, that's some may not know what that means. And see if they could come up with an example. They always talk about Big Brother that lives in the basement and stuff is dependent.
Yeah. He's not independent for sure.
Yeah. Whereas some of them will be like, yeah, my sister is independent. She lives on her own. She bought her own car. And then they start getting into that. They always talk about that stuff. So that helps to get them understanding those. And then anyway.
Or even think of it like coming back to science. If you're going to grow plants, what is your independent variable? Maybe amount of water, maybe fertilizer versus your dependent, what doesn't change, right? No, what is changed? Yeah, I'm all confused.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Third graders don't get into that too much.
No.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I'll be doing this weekend is coming up with a good way to get that all rolling and get my week of independent, dependent stuff all figured out.
I mean, weather. I mean, if it's really cold, are you gonna wear shorts? I mean, Yeah. When I was in high school, I would have wore shorts. My reasoning was I walk into a building and I don't go outside. But I don't know.
That takes me back, Angie, because I had a son that would not wear long sleeve, would not wear a coat, didn't matter what the temperature. And I'm like, buddy, I know you're going out to play. You got to wear something warm. And he never did.
Yep. Those silly boys.
I know. I'm trying to see if I can find something for you, Steph.
Yeah. I have good exit, ticket type stuff that I can use for hinge and, creating hinge questions at the end after they've done some. But I want some more discovery type stuff at the beginning. So anyway.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that went by fast, ladies.
What in the world?
Good.
Hopefully you all got good stuff though.
We didn't all finish. That's okay.
I just drawing the blank. I'm gonna get
No
my
worries.
going.
Should bring in a dead plant and a live plant.
Yeah.
And then have a discussion about that.
I got plenty of dead ones. I'd have to go buy a live one that day.
I can help
So
you.
I don't kill it. But then we'd watch it die the week I'm teaching it as it's in my room.
Well, somehow I managed to unalive succulents, which I didn't think was possible, but I did.
You found a way.
I found a way, but then I have this cactus.
Okay, I know I got cut off, so hopefully everyone else had a good wrap up with their team.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to share out maybe like an aha that came out from their group, or you don't have to share an example, but just like, okay, we're thinking about it this way, or this is a little easier than we thought, or I know next week I'm going to focus on blank.
I'll share out.
Thanks, Alex.
One thing that I really liked was that we were talking about if students can create a model on a sticky note, and of course making sure that we have those and we don't lose them was a good one. And then we discussed, could the students draw a picture to it? I thought those were some really good examples that would be really fast and that students could probably do like within under a minute or two and get it turned in right away. So
Love
those
that.
are good aha moments for me.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone want to piggyback off her?
Sorry.
In our group, they were talking about interest and stuff. It was interesting to me. I don't teach at older grades, so I thought it was fascinating, but coming up with a hinge question. But then it really made me think we really need, whatever lesson we're going to teach, knowing what evidence we want from the hinge question. Like their slide says, how do we know when they know it? Like, what kind of response are we looking for? And then knowing what we want the students to do or what we hope they say, then that will determine where we go with it. So just that being in the breakout rooms and talking about that interest question made me think more about what evidence am I looking for in my students? So planning ahead of time what I hope to see, and then that would help me write my hinge question.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great connection, Jill. I think I know our huge focus last month was where is the evidence, right? I want my kids to know all these standards, or I want them to know interest rate or whatever, right? But what does that actually look like, and how am I going to get there? So I love that you're thinking about the hinge question is actually just kind of that pivot point of like, if I ask this, what am I actually looking for, right? And that's kind of the pre-planning, which maybe, sometimes we put a lot of effort into the pre-planning part and sometimes we don't, but this specific part of the formative 5 is very planning specific, right? We're planning for that evidence. Where the interviews and the show me and that kind of stuff, we're gathering evidence, if that makes sense. But the hinge is where you're actually like planning for what would this look like. So thank you so much for making that connection for us. Does anyone else want to do a quick share out? We have time for one more.
I was just going to say that I realized as we talked that I do that. I think I do that a lot. And it was in when you're saying, does it make sense? Yes, I asked that. Does that answer make sense with the problem? So that I think would probably qualify. And it helped the kids to stop and think about what they were actually doing, which was the wrong thing.
That's great. So, all right. So to give you guys kind of again that heads up, we're moving through this like PLC lens with our formative assessment. And our next two meetings in the spring are really going to focus on how are we going to respond? What does this look like? I know one of the groups I was in and they were like, we have all this data, but what do we do with it, right? So it's like, okay, if we're not using the data, then let's not waste our time collecting it, or let's be more intentional with the data that we are collecting so that we're not wasting our time, right? You guys are so busy and we know how busy you are. So be really thoughtful. Like, I don't want you to plan a hinge question and then not do anything with it. We want you to be like, this is a pivotal like lesson in the unit. I really need to stop and pause. Like, can my students move on from this? Do we need to revisit it, or do we need to back up a little bit? So, also I want to highlight one more thing that another group said. Even though it says hinge question on all of our slides that we've been using tonight, it can just be like a hinge pause. It could just be a statement. It could be draw me this. It could be model me this. It doesn't have to actually be a question. So, all of our literacy friends would be, slamming us for that language. Okay, so let's just quickly, Carol, do you want to wrap up with the credit and kind of the closing business? Oh, you're muted.
On the navigation guide, there's a link to the collaboration strand credit down at the bottom. Just go ahead and sign up for that. I think you can get free credit through ISU if you haven't used, I think there's like $150-ish that you can use. So some of you may get it for free. Some of you, if you've already used it, may not, but go ahead and sign up for that. And any of you who are in our coaching program, I will be sending out a link for that as well to sign up for credit for that if you're interested. So I'll get the link to you in an email.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. And just so you guys, like, quick reminder, our next meeting is April 9th, and then the next one will be May. So it'll just be April and May back to back, and then we'll be done. So for the next, I guess you have like 2-ish months almost, and we just want you guys to continue to refine your collection of evidence. So make it meaningful. Be really mindful of what you're doing and then use it to change your instruction, right? That's the whole point of this formative assessment is we're not necessarily going session by session or lesson by lesson. We're taking a pause point. We're collecting some evidence. What do my students actually know? And what is the evidence that I'm looking for? And we appreciate you guys all spending your evening with us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to stay on or email Carol and I. We obviously love working with all of you. So enjoy your evening and keep crushing it. You guys all did a really great job, and it was fun to hear how you guys are documenting your formative 5 work. So enjoy your night.